You and I both know not everyone you speak with is going to buy from you. However, that still doesn't stop us from getting all bent out of shape when somebody tells us no, or leaving money on the table. In this episode, we're going to talk to you how you can take advantage of getting that money you deserve, that opportunity that's yours, called J.G. Wentworth. I'm just kidding. Just listen to this episode and it's going to help you. Check it out. Hey, everyone. Welcome to another great episode of the Sales Evangelist Podcast. I'm your host, Donald C. Kelly, the Sales Evangelist. And I'm so excited for another great episode. I'm so excited to be here with you today. On this episode, I have the one and only Mr. Jacob Hicks. And Jacob is a coach. He guides, he helps, and he strengthens professionals like you and me to make sure that we do our job well. Specifically, today we're going to be talking about following up. No, don't get all crazy and bent out of shape. And you're going to say, well, Donald, I know how to follow up. I've heard about this for years. Think about this. You and I are going to get rejected. Like, just straight facts. We talk about this in the episode. But as a sales rep, you're going to get some no's. How do you handle those no's? Not like, build your mindset and so forth, but how do you take those no's and turn them into future yeses? This man is doing it. Specific stats. He has a strategy. 70% of those people that tells him no, 70%, he can go back and track and say that they're purchasing. They are investing. Now, it's not happening like instantly, but on this episode, he's going to tell us how he's doing it. If this is your first time listening to our podcast, do this. I want you to go ahead and subscribe because we're going to notify you every time we drop a new piece of content. And I want to make sure that you're on top of things and that you stay making money from all the hustles and the insights we give you. Go ahead, listen to what Jacob has to share when it comes to us overcoming this immediate no that turns into a long-term yes. Check it out. Jacob, welcome to the show, man.
All right, thanks so much for having me. Excited to be here.
I am pumped to be here with you today, and I'm pumped to have you. And I say this all the time, but I mean it because obviously only certain people we bring on a podcast. In our prep call, you got me at hello because we were just chatting about, just overcoming rejection and like going through the tough times. And I feel like sometimes in sales, we in a podcast like this, and I'm guilty of it, but but I've also learned good theater, mm-hmm. And good theater comes with being vulnerable, or good, entertainment comes with being vulnerable. And I've shared a lot of my mess ups. I think we need to do more of that because mm-hmm. most times as a sales rep, we're not necessarily hitting home runs. We're getting maybe a ground ball here or getting a little line drive, or perhaps we're getting struck out. A lot of us get struck out. I get struck out regularly. So it's not every deal doesn't go to a yes. If that's the case, all of us would be, it wouldn't need for podcasts like this. But rejection. So frame this because we are going to talk about and focus particularly on rejection and what to do when you did everything right, but you still get a no. How do we continue that dialogue? You have a framework, and I want to talk about that. Just let's stay at a high level right now.
Yeah.
What should I do when I get rejected? Why is this so important to you? I shared why I loved it so much. Why are you so interested or fascinated with this topic?
Because really what it comes down to for me, that's where all the success is, at least in my experience.
Say it one more time for the folks in the back.
That's where all the success is. Kind of period. Because I feel like we say it all the time in the coaching, the speaking, the sales world, but like you learn a lot more from when you fall down than when you get back up, I think.
Yes.
But really when we're talking about getting rejected, we're talking about like how we handle it in terms of like our mindset piece, but then also like over the long term, because the vast majority of business is not won right there at the immediate closing table. It's won through that, 5 through 15th follow-up. So, that's really that's why I'm so passionate about it, because I believe really, really strongly that in the sales world, if you have a strong follow-up system, then you can always work on your closing or your product knowledge or your other systems. But if follow-up isn't there, then it's all moot.
You and I probably could go back and show people in exchange stories. And I'm sure folks listening to this can do the same thing, where because of a follow up, it may have led to X and X, multiple hundreds of thousands of dollars
Mm.
in revenue. I've had situations where I just reconnected with somebody and that turned into like, 5 figures because the
Yeah.
simple fact that I just did a reconnect with them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
plain simple. Um, but here's the component though that I find that many of us fall into, and I'm putting this down, being vulnerable here, remembering to do it, or when you do get that rejection, not doing anything about it. And I'll give you an example. I have a client, he's coaching one of his reps. One of his reps, he's listening to one of their call recording. The
Mm.
rep got, hey, we're looking at another vendor, you know, uh, kind of thing. There's so much you can do to follow up with that one.
Yeah.
But the rep is new. I
Mm.
get it. But the rep didn't do anything about it
They just
because
took it.
it was so, yeah, there's so the rejection and that lack of confidence in themselves, like lack of confidence in a product. They knew fundamental selling, but it was just fascinating how that all went out the window
Mm.
because of this rejection. So I can see how powerful rejection can be. Um, you gave me one when we were talking initially. I'm reaching out doing prospecting. That's where 60% of sales reps said they got the hardest time,
Yeah.
or salespeople said it's hardest part of the sales process. We get a rejection. Donald, I call Donald, not interested. What can I do in a situation like that to best
So,
help?
so the way that I think of it, and
Yeah,
so I'll give the the one that I gave you here in a second, but
yeah, yeah,
the way that I always think of it is like, what's my retreat point, right? So, like, obviously, you want to go in, you're guns a blazing, you're trying to make the sale, you're trying to close some business, and somebody just says, no, which more often than not means not yet, as we should know. But all right, so you got that no. So what is your next point? Like, how are you still going to provide value to this person, even at a lesser level, or maybe still provide value even if they're not going to buy anything at all? So my favorite line that I've used for years at this point is, "Would you be offended if I stayed in touch? Would you be offended if I reached out to you again?" And that's won a ton of business for me over the course of, again, a lot of different industries, a lot of different career paths. Because probably 95% of the time, people are not going to be offended if you stay in touch with them, provide value to them, and aren't just harassing them and calling them every other day.
yeah. What would that look like though if I were to when you say like, because it could be vague when I say provide value. What have you done to help bring that quote unquote value to somebody when you kept in touch?
Yeah, so when it comes to following up via email or calls or whatever, obviously I'm the expert, right? I'm the salesperson. I know my product. I know my service better than anybody, or I should, right? I'm still learning it.
You should.
Yeah. But like, assuming again that you're coming from that expert, you have that a lot of
Yeah.
credibility, then obviously you've been doing this a while. Questions have come up. So like something that I always kind of go to, with kind of regardless of what industry I've been in, is like, what questions have come up from my clients in the past? What have they struggled with? What have been their pain points? What are just some of the things that they're trying to figure out when they do end up using my service? And usually, that's something I can distill down into maybe a 2 3 point email. Something pretty short and sweet that is a lot of value that I can say, hey, it's okay that you're not, not looking to do business with me right now. It's not the best time for you. I totally understand and respect that. These 3 or 4 things have really come up in the past and helped my clients a lot. Would you be offended if I sent that over to you?
Mm. I love that component. And then the reason why I like it is because there was a book called Insight Based Selling.
Mm.
One of the things they shared is that it didn't say this exactly, but sales reps are like honeybees, right? They go to these different flowers and they're extrapolating
Yeah.
insights from all
Yeah.
these
Yeah.
different
Yeah.
companies and they're bringing it back. So if the fact that in the book, they kept saying like the sales reps are like these McKinsey consultants
Mm.
because
Mm-hmm.
they sales CEOs would take meetings with them because of the simple fact that they're getting so much data or information
Yeah.
from
Yep.
these sales reps. If I know that and if I'm sitting on that, even in the situation with the sales rep that I mentioned earlier, he may not have been in the company long, but there's probably insights that the company have or that he had from his other organization that he probably could share. And the customers would probably see that as valuable just because you are sharing, this is what I'm collecting or insights I got from other organizations similar to yours. You know what I mean?
I mean, 100%. Because I mean, like, you don't have to be in the industry for decades at a time
Yeah.
to get these kinds of insights. You have people around you. Like my one of my biggest kind of ahas in sales was realizing that if I don't know the answer to a question the client asked me, they will love it if I say I don't know, but I will find out. And like going to like my colleagues or whomever, my leadership, and saying, hey, I got this question, can you help me figure out the answer to it, and then bring that information back to them. I mean, like, the thing that sales reps, especially particularly traveling sales reps, don't realize is that we are talking to them about their problems a lot more than they're talking to each other. So when you
Yes.
go into an office, they might have like some CE stuff going on where they see each other once a year, a couple times a year, or something maybe. But more often than not, they're not talking to each other all that much. We talk to them all the time. We have the insights, even if they don't end up buying from us.
I love it. So here's what I'm putting a little note down here because I want to do this as a, uh, um, I want to do this as a role play.
Okay, I love it. I love it.
So you got to go along with me. I try to put some stuff here. I want to just before we go into that part, I want to. How often do people say yes when you tell them, "Can I stay in touch with you?" I'm just curious on that one.
I would say honestly, probably, I mean, without actually having the hard data in front of me, I would say
Yeah.
like 90, 95% of the time. And the thing to bear in mind is
Sheesh.
even if those like 5, 10, maybe even 20% of people are like, no, I don't really want to hear from you again. Is that somebody you wouldn't want to work with then? Like, would you want to
Yeah.
work with them? Really? Probably not.
Yeah. No, we don't want that. We ain't about that life. All right.
No.
So here's another one that I want to get from you. All right. So how often do they still buy from you? You probably I know again these are not hard data, but I just want the sellers to hear before we go into the role play. It's not difficult to do because you
Mm.
will show them how simple it is, but there's rich reward behind it. So how often? So 95% of people saying yes.
Yeah.
How often are those people actually investing? Like,
So I did try to run some numbers on like some of the stuff I've done in the past, and it's
wow,
like 70% of the time
no way, no,
because
no, 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 no. Okay, okay, okay.
because it's like it's all about the follow up piece, because that's all we're talking about here is following up. If you follow up
Dang.
consistently over the course of months or years, you will win business.
So you're telling me, and I'm being like, I hope you guys, if you're watching the video, this is just understand the numbers here. 10 people tells me no, right?
Hmm.
They're not interested. I asked them, can I follow up with, send them information? 9 out of 10 of them, let's just say that, just
Yeah.
90% of them say yes. Of the 90% that says yes, you're telling me 70% of those, so it's probably around that 6 of them
Hmm.
are actually purchasing from you because you consistently follow up.
Yeah, because well, again, there's a caveat there. We have to
Dang.
say like you can't just say like
Yeah.
they are buying from me, but they're not buying from me tomorrow or the very first
No.
time I
No.
follow
No.
up with them. But over again the course of your proper follow up systems, where you're staying in touch with them at least a couple of times a month, then
Yeah.
yes, you are winning that business.
All right. So let's do the role play, and then maybe what we can do, we can talk after that about it.
Yeah.
Actually, before that, the system that you would typically employ, is that something that I'm sending as an individual sales rep, just as putting a reminder in my CRM? Is this like, can I send the same thing to multiple prospects, or am I creating something new each time, or am I putting this in like email marketing? Like, what level?
So typically when you very first meet somebody, we're talking like a very cold prospect.
Yeah.
Usually what I recommend for at least those first handful of like 4, 5 to 10-ish touches, I recommend trying to personalize it as much as you possibly can. Just saying like, hey, based on, our conversation, you talked about X, Y, and Z, and I've got A, B, and C to try to help you, with your problem or whatever it is. But I mean, after that, once you get them on your long term, your 12-month cycle, then I think it can be a little more individualistic. What I still recommend to people is if let's say you have like a 12-month plan where you're emailing or calling them, a couple times a month, then again, I would recommend having some sort of like true, like another sort of like sales touch, where
Yeah.
maybe like once a quarter you're calling them and saying, hey, Donald, last time we talked, you said you were having this problem. I just wanted to check in just to see how you guys were doing and just kind of have another sales conversation. Because again, you never know when somebody's like, yeah, this other guy I was dealing with is a huge pain in the butt. I'm not going to deal with him anymore. Let's talk business.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. I love this. All right. So we got this good idea of it. We know what, have an understanding of the system, but let's role play it.
Yeah.
So I'm the sales rep. Well, if you want to tell me what the prospect situation may be like, you're the one that's going to be driving. So
You want me to be the buyer or the seller?
you're the seller, but
Okay.
is there a certain type of seller I should be, or?
I mean, not necessarily, and we can just. I mean, if you want, we can like I can just go right to the close, and you can
Let's
just
go.
tell me. You can just tell me no, like this isn't a good time for you.
Yeah. All right. Cool. Let's do it. Ready, set, action.
Donald, thank you so much for taking the time for me today. You know, at least based on everything we've talked about, I feel like we're a really good fit. I mean, is there any reason that you wouldn't want to do business with me today?
No, I mean, I thoroughly enjoyed the stuff. I appreciate it, and I think it's good insights. I just don't think that I'm in a place right now that I can make that investment. So, I mean, let's just maybe I can stay in touch with you or whatnot. Reach out to you when we're ready again.
Yeah, and I totally get that, and I want to make sure that this makes sense for you too. I mean, timing is hugely important. We talked about X, Y, and Z, and I know that can be like a larger time commitment. Would it make more sense to just kind of do like a quick one-off where you just get some stuff where you can kind of get some things in place, and then maybe we can revisit things down the road?
Yeah, my monies are
Mm,
like tied up with other stuff right now. So
yeah,
even if I really wanted to do it, again, I think it sounds interesting. It's not that big of a priority right now,
sure, sure.
and I don't have the funds for that right now. So
Yeah. Well, and again, I really appreciate you,
yeah,
being upfront with me. I mean, kind of like I told you at the beginning of the call. I'm not a BSer. I don't want you to BS me either. But would you be offended if I, just stayed in touch with you every once in a while to see how you were doing?
offended? No, man, your stuff was insightful. So yeah, open to that.
Oh, so fantastic. I'll be sure to stay in touch. Now, I'm not going to call you every day, but I will
I know.
call
I
you
was gonna
every
say,
other
as
day.
long
Is
as
that
not calling
okay?
me at midnight or
All right.
spamming me or anything like that.
No, but not too much. I'll just call you every other day if that's okay.
Every other day, great.
Yeah,
Oh man, I
perfect.
can explain this to my wife now. Who's calling?
So that's again kind of how it would work.
Yeah. So and that part, if even if you did like something like that, kind of like depending on a relationship, is a tongue in cheek joke. I'm gonna call you. It's they're going to remember or expect that you're gonna provide something
Yeah.
from them, and then you just go into that model there.
Yeah.
I like it. How do you help to teach reps this that it becomes sticky enough that they remember it and do it?
So, I mean, I feel like it's I don't know, I feel like it's almost a cuss word in the sales world, but I mean, the truth is, I
Word,
mean,
yeah,
I'm a
thank
big believer in scripts and role playing. I mean, just like we did today.
you. Yeah.
I mean, like people say, I don't want to sound like a robot, and I think doing role playing enough, going over your script will make you not sound like a robot. It'll make you sound like a human. I mean, I've seen this 100 times.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you put something down, just get your bullet points. Like, hey, here's the 4 or 5 points I want to make sure that I hit. Get that down and say it over and over and over and over again until it's rote and you just know exactly where you're going in the conversation.
Love it. I love it. I love it.
Mm,
What about from the perspective of, um, let's say I'm a veteran seller,
yeah.
and I'm listening to the show, but I'm like, bro, I know that stuff, but perhaps she or he just not necessarily doing it because I don't know. Sometimes you get comfortable. What would
Yeah.
you say to that person listening to this episode today?
So with that within that situation, what's really coming down to is you're right. You're getting comfortable. You're getting stuck in that rut. So you got to do something to change the paradigm. You got to do something to change the dynamic a little bit. So if you are a veteran seller and maybe you're an inside sales rep of some sort, right? So you're sitting at your desk, you're just on the phone all day long. If you're sitting down at your desk all day long and you get into your routine and you're just ba 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 and you're like, oh crap, I forgot I want to try this new thing out, then maybe stand up. Maybe I mean do
Ah,
something weird and like just try something a little differently to get you out of that comfort zone, just enough to again make you remember that you are actually trying to try this new closing technique or this new touch point or whatever it is.
you're breaking that monotony. You're
Yep.
getting out of the status quo, um, like mind frame there. All right. And then the last component that I want to do look at the means of following up with a prospect. Phone call, email doesn't matter. Is that like LinkedIn? It doesn't matter the means that I go about engaging with this prospect after they said yes. Stay in touch.
So, in my opinion, like, it kind of depends again on the dynamic.
Yeah,
My favorite thing to ask, if like, hey, I wouldn't be offended if you followed up with me. It's like, okay, what's the best way to stay in touch with you? And just see like,
fair
oh,
enough.
they prefer phone calls, they prefer text, they prefer emails. If maybe you don't get that information, or maybe it's not working as well as you had thought it would, I'm a big believer. If you've got any means at your disposal to reach out to that potential client, I do it and just see what generates a response, and do it
Yeah.
until either you die or they die.
All right, all right. You guys hear that? We're going for a minute here.
Right.
We're getting emails from me at 77, 92.
Right. I'm still out here, still doing it.
Still out here, bro. You gonna buy that thing or what? You gonna buy some training? Come on, man. I love this, man. All right, well, let's. If there's one major takeaway you want folks listening to this episode to walk away with, whether they're the sales leader or the individual rep, new rep, old rep, veteran rep. What is in our case, the example old rep, because I'm falling up till the 90. What's the biggest takeaway you want them to leave with?
I mean, the biggest takeaway, I mean, especially like that example you gave early on, it was like that newer rep that's,
Yeah.
they just take kind of the rejection, have that pivot point, have that retreat point, and have 2 or 3 of them if you can. To where like, hey, I got that no at the first, my A business that I want to get to. Okay, and that means I'm going to go to my B business. And I kind of tried to do that in our role plays. Like, okay, well, you don't want to invest at this amount. You want to invest at the smaller amount and just get your foot in the door. Nope, you don't want to do that either. Okay, well, hey, would you be offended if I stayed in touch with you? And that's still a win. That's still a yes.
Is that retreat point?
Yeah.
Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, and that's just the way that I think of it in my head. It's like, okay, I got rejected for the A business. I'm going to retreat to my B business. Oh,
Yeah.
they don't want that either. Okay, I'm going to retreat to my would you be offended?
Yeah. Come on, man. Love it.
Mm-hmm.
All right, man. Well, folks want to get in touch with you. They're excited to learn from you. What's the best way for them to connect with you, Jacob?
The best way to find me is through my website. That's jacobhickscoach.com. So I've got a lot of good resources on there, particularly on the Growth Hub section. I've got a lot of good books and things for you on there. And then also on my own podcast. It's called Purpose Driven Progress.
All right. Well, we're going to put a link in the show notes so folks can get access to the content, your Growth Hub, and as well as on the podcast.
Fantastic.
Jacob, thank you so much for coming on the show today. We truly appreciate it, man.
Yeah. No, thanks you so much for having me. It's been great.
Anytime. Hey, that was Jacob Hicks. If you haven't done so already, do yourself a favor. Go connect with him on LinkedIn. Connect with this man and tell him that you heard him here on the Sales Evangelist podcast. Follow him. Take advantage of some of the offer and the gift that he's given us with his growth information as well as his own podcast. You can find links in the show notes below. I'm doing this because I want you to thrive and succeed. If you want to improve your sales game, check out our mastermind. Go to thesalesevangelist.com/mastermind. We have a new cohort starting, and I would love to have you take part in that. Additionally, I want you to be able to just go for things. Sometimes we limit ourselves on what we can accomplish, but you can accomplish and do great things. Go ahead and check out the content from Jacob. Check out our mastermind, and let's see if we can help you to improve. As always, I want you to raise your level of thinking, go out and do big things. See you on the next one.